All right, hey guys, good morning to you. Let's. I want to try and keep these relatively short. So let's just look at our three majors, and then I'll split it up because I've got a few other things to show you that I think you can learn something from. So here, this is that same chart we've been working from. This is Bitcoin to the dollar on Bitstamp. I've got this at 4 hours now. So we simply cannot rule out a potential top in here. We can't rule that out. You take note here. We're back at the algo targets as I've shown a couple of times. Look how well it nailed it here. Here's the negative 23 of a prior pull. Here's our negative 23 here from this pull, where we went right into our little sweet spot. Hit that. We hit the median line. We're at the outside edge of this median line. Oh, sorry, guys. Breakfast catching me. Okay, so but if we look here on a 4 hour, we blow it up a little bit. We can see that at least at this point we've got a three-wave correction. So that implies that we are just correcting this last move here. So just keeping it simple, just pulling from my low here to my high. We've gone to the 50, right? We've gone right where you'd expect it between the 50 and the 618. Now, if I take this off and then I go back out, you can see we're coming up to our median line here. So we've got, a good target here. It would be ideal to tap the median line, but right now we've just wicked the 50. So do we have more there? I certainly would like it better down here at the median line between the 50 and approaching the 618. But here now on a 4 hour, if I go down to a smaller time frame, we can start to do a little micro tuning. Here it is on the hourly. This is hard to really be definitive about this count because of the shallowness of this. So potentially you've got a 1, 2, 3. We could still stay with a 4. This still could play as a 5-wave. We get overlap of what we believe to be the wave 1 here, so it would play as a diagonal. But if you look at it here, we're right to the median line, and we've stalled there a little bit. Now we're getting a bit of a reaction. So when I see a low like this, that it isn't precise, and Bitcoin has been very precise on all of these pivots, makes me question it just a little bit. Granted, we do have the median line, and we are, just a few shy of the 50. So how do we quantify it? How do we know we have a hard pivot? Well, we got to go down to an even smaller time frame. And we look here and we see, well, here's the median line that is, and again, not unusual for there to be indecision around the median line. So for it to cluster there. Now that creates the potential for this to go back to the other edge. So we have the possibility that we go right here. Next area of resistance. You'd run into the Vegas wave here on the 15-minute as well. So, you have to look at it and say, okay, well, what kind of targets do we have? Do we have any algo targets that can be helpful to us? We know we've got structure here that seems to be influencing the market pretty nicely. Now, my preferred entry would be down here, right, where we get this overlap between where we have the pitchfork, and this would be back down to revisit the median line, and then I have a channel on it. Now, while I'm here, this is something I want to show you that you guys may not be aware of. So anytime you get three pivots like this, I will often draw both the pitchfork because I want the median line, but I'll also draw the channel, and the channel center line is also equally important in terms of the market's geometry. So you don't want to discount that, and in fact, a channel and a pitchfork and a modified shift pitchfork are identical. So here, if I highlight the pitchfork and I go over here, and this is a good exercise whenever you're evaluating with three pivots, because sometimes the market will be too steep or too shallow for the original or the traditional pitchfork to catch the market's movement. So that's when you start looking at whether the shift or the modified shift are containing it. So if I go to the shift, now just to be clear on the distinction between them, the shift Pitchfork is taking the distance from this pivot to this pivot. It's cutting it by 50% in price, and it puts the median line there. Not as good. Not as good. I mean, here we get some intersection. Yes, we get through. We come back. It's a revisit. We're down to the outside edge, so that could play. If I go to the modified shift, take a look at what happens. Do you see how that now completely overlaps the channel that I drew? So the modified shift takes this distance in price, takes that down 50%, but it also takes 50% in time. So here's where the pitchfork starts right here. Or pardon me, here's where the median line starts right here. So we get this, and again, now I start to like this, but, no need to have both a modified shift and a channel on because they are identical. They're the exact same thing. So if I go back to my pitchfork, what I really want to do is look for confluence between the two. So I go back to original, and you'll see why I've got this cluster down here, because I get overlap and a little geometry here and a confluence. So I've got a combination of things. I've got the low to high 50%. I've got the median line. I've got the outside edge of the channel. Now, do we get there? Well, we don't know. I mean, we're getting a fairly good pop here off of the median line. So how can we quantify it? Well, the first thing we got to do is look at what's happening within this move here. So we've got, if I go high to low and pull up, here you see, here's my little 61865 window. We went to it, went through it, and now we've got that target down here, that algo target right here. Here's my green line. That's my target right there on that pull. Now, look, within this, because we're on a 15-minute, we can get better subdivision. So within this last move here, if I pull from my B high to this low, we go right to the 50. Right to the Vegas wave, right to this prior wave 1 low, and we get this reaction. Now we have come to and through that negative 23. So potentially, we've got a low in here that we can work from. This is a pretty significant reaction that we're seeing. So how would we know, or we could be certain that we've got a good pivot here? Well, the next thing we've got to do is look at, we got to look at two of them. We got to look at the all the way, halfway back. Here's the 50% on that move, but we've also got to look at, wrong one. We've also got to look at, if I can grab that, from our last swing pivot, which went right to the Vegas wave. Do you see that? Now we've got to get from this swing, let me open it up so you can see it a little better. We've got to get from that swing, and we got to see what happens at the 618. Because we have, click it here, you can see it a little better. So we have the potential for a 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we've just overlapped here, so it would be an ending diagonal. So do you see what I've done here? I'm just pulling from this swing high here to this swing low. Now we've just wicked the 50. So we get that. You see if I jiggle here, do you see that? Now that negative 23 lines up right with our prior little pocket. So we've got, this nice confluence down here. Now, do we see it? We don't know. We don't know. But, the next test is going to be, if we're going to keep going here, if we're going to keep coming up, we've got some structural resistance from this prior support. We might have, a little structure at the 61865 window. If we get through that, then likely path, as I just showed you, would be up here to challenge the outside edge of the pitchfork and that median line. Here's our Vegas wave. Here's our 786. So if we're going to keep rolling here, then we have to consider this as a completed ABC. That would be unusual, but it could play. A, B, C, if you go down to a 5-minute, we might be able to carve out a little 1, 2, 3, 4, double bottom 5. It's suspect because we're not at a precision point, and Bitcoin has been so precise technically. So to see this out, kind of floating without a hard pivot on the fib, we could look at this. We'd want to consider all of these relationships, right? So it's kind of trying to decipher the puzzle. We come a little shy of the 100%. So this low is a little bit suspect to me, but we are getting this reaction. So if it's going to keep going, then we have to consider that as a hard pivot. Until proven otherwise, my expectation is that there's one more visit down here, right? That's what we would look for. But it remains to be seen. So next test will be, you know, what can we get through this swing, get through the 50? We've gone through by a tick or two. Do we come back down? That would be ideal, but you know the market doesn't always give you exactly what you're looking for. So there we've just wicked through that low. So now we know if it's going to come back down, it's a diagonal, which would not be unusual. So if it keeps going here, so there now we're getting a little more. So now here's the next test is the 618. Do we get that? Now I pull this off, since we don't need that anymore, since potentially we've got our pivot here. So it's kind of a wait and see. You know, I'm not long off of this. I did not take that. I was looking for this. So do we get it? You know, we wait and see. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. But you got to look at this on all of these time frames to get a handle on what may be happening, right? So it's a little shy here. This is still remains the preferred entry. I would be a buyer here myself, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, there's 10 minutes. I'm going to wrap on that. I'll be back to you in another one shortly.